All right, welcome to your video lecture all about estuaries. Hopefully you have pulled up your estuary notes and you are ready to take note of everything we're learning. So we just finished up our unit on freshwater. We're going to look at estuaries because it is actually kind of a good middleman between freshwater and salt or ocean water. For our bell ringer questions today, I want you to think about and ask yourself, do you know what brackish water is? And if you do, maybe where might I find this type of water? Give you a few seconds to think about it. Pause the video if you'd like more time. But brackish water is the mixing of salt and fresh water. It's a special word that we use to call it that. You find brackish water in estuaries or where rivers or freshwater systems meet oceans. So an example of brackish water would be the estuary or right where the Cape Fear River meets the ocean, where it drains out, where the mouth of the river is. So estuaries are awesome. We're going to spend today looking at them and studying them. Here's an example of what an estuary might look like. So it could be very marshland like this, very green, might not be as wet or waterful as you would think. Estuaries are awesome. They do a lot of cool things for us, or they have a lot of benefits. I actually have about 6 that we're going to learn today. Estuaries, if you wanted to define them, they're a special type of wetland. They're areas where salt and freshwater mix, causing, remember, brackish water. There are many estuaries in North Carolina. The largest is the Pumlick, there we go, sound. Good. So again, there are many estuaries, but the largest is the Palmlick. Don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it sounds right, sound. Estuaries are awesome because they have a high biodiversity. Remember when we talked about what biodiversity is? I asked you guys to use your scientific English and break apart the words so you can see bio and diversity in the word there. Bio, we learned, means life, and diversity means differences. So if you put it together, it means many differences of life or many species. So estuaries are awesome because they house or they provide a habitat for many, many species, both plant, animal, and even our single cellular protozoa or bacteria. So estuaries are really awesome. Going in reminder, just pause the video if you need more time to type down or write down your answers. Estuaries are awesome for fish. They provide nurseries. So your first thing that estuaries do, or the first support of why estuaries should be considered safe spaces, is they are nurseries. Because of the calm waters, plant life, estuaries often are nurseries for many species of fish and birds. So because you don't have generally the crashing of waves that you would in the ocean, and because there's lots of plants in an estuary, for other reasons which we'll look at in a second, our estuaries often provide a great breeding ground for lots and lots of fish, and even birds too. If you look at my other bubble here, my second bubble, estuaries are particularly important because they are natural filters. Estuaries, like other wetlands, because an estuary is a type of wetland, they filter out pollutants from the water. So if you recall back in just a few lectures ago, we talked about water quality indicators, and we talked about how a water supply can be polluted. Estuaries are really awesome because they filter out some of those pollutants from the water, which is great for the wildlife that live there, and it's also great for anything downstream of an estuary, which is the ocean. So it's helping to make sure that our human pollutants aren't getting into the ocean. One oyster can filter 25 gallons of water per day. That's a little fun fact for you. So providing a habitat for our species of oyster here, which is a bivalve, is very good because it allows the water to be filtered. We take out some of those pollutants. Not only do wetlands use organisms like oysters to filter, wetlands and estuaries can use the soil just in general. which will also help filter out any pollutants before they get into the water supply or wherever the water is going. So in this case, it would be the ocean. Estuaries are also awesome because they act as sponges by filtering the water from toxins. Again, so not only do the oysters and organisms filter the water, the estuary itself, the soil, helps filter the water as well as soaking up floodwaters. So if you were in class, we did a tiny experiment called Wetland in a Pan, and if you are taking Earth and Environmental Science with me next year, we are also going to be doing that experiment, but it shows really clearly how estuaries and other wetlands soak up floodwaters. So what that means is that the water infiltrates into the ground instead of flowing over the ground and reaching further and further past where the water should be. So wetlands are natural flood preventers, which means that they're really important to keep around because they're helping prevent floods. One of the ways that this could benefit us economically is that wetlands kind of act as a protector against any property that's built maybe too close to the river or too close to the estuary in general. So it helps to make sure those areas don't flood. When we do things like destroy estuaries or wetlands and put surfaces that are impermeable, so maybe say a parking lot near the river's edge, then we are taking away that flood prevention and our filtering abilities of the wetland. So it's really important that we keep these estuaries natural. Another awesome thing that estuaries do is they're full of nutrients. That's why we have a lot of plants. So if you notice in your notes here, we've got a lot of plant and animal life. That's because of the nutrients that are found in what we call marsh mud. This causes an increase in plant life, which is awesome too, because plants provide, again, a habitat for fish or birds as they have their babies, so if they're spawning. And just provide food, again, because remember our producers are our base of our food web, so it's great for that too. Not only do they have nutrients, they also have a plethora or lots of bacteria found inside the soil. These bacteria do things like eat the organic matter or dead organisms and put the nutrients back into the soil. So again, marsh mud is really good. It has lots of good nutrients for plants, which can help lead to more animals in the area, more variety of animals as well. And the bacteria in there is putting the nutrients back into the soil of any of the dead organic matter. Bacteria are also pretty awesome, and the marsh mud is actually so full of bacteria that you can use what we call a mudwat. It's a type of technology that has been created to harness the power, quote unquote, or the bacteria's ability to put nutrients back into the soil and create electricity. So it's some circuiting and some fancy technology, but we can actually power things with this marsh mud because it's so full of bacteria, which is awesome. So not only, again, because we have all those nutrients in the marsh mud and the bacteria, again, are putting nutrients back into the marsh mud, we have lots of plants. And lots of plants aren't only good for housing babies, whether that be fish babies or bird babies, but plants are also good because they stabilize the shoreline. So if you've ever noticed, and maybe you haven't because you're not super into architecture, but I'm not sure, or just natural architecture, but the more plants you have on a surface like a hill right here, the more stable that surface is going to be from erosion, because the roots of the plant, if you can imagine, extend down into the soil and hold that soil in. So because I have a lot of plants, because I have a lot of nutrients, because my estuary acts as a filter and a sponge, and I got a lot of bacteria, that enables us to stabilize the shoreline, so we get less erosion, which is a really awesome thing too. If you want to think about it in a human perspective, it protects your property again because that shoreline isn't being pulled away and eroded into the ocean or downriver. But it also is good for other things too. The shoreline will help prevent not only property damage, but a stable shoreline can lead to less severe like waves and flooding if something were to happen, like a hurricane or something. So if a hurricane were to happen, the plants help stabilize that shoreline from either the natural erosion or the erosion that happens when we have natural disasters. And the last benefit of wetlands, or excuse me, estuaries, that I want you to learn is that they are good money makers. So because of fisheries and tourism, many people / companies come and take advantage of the biodiversity of the area. This brings money into the economy of the surrounding area. So if you don't care at all about nature, please associate estuaries as being beneficial money-wise. Other people like nature, they want to go see it, they want to go kayak on it, they want to take pictures, whatever it is that brings people into the beautiful area. Also brings with them their money. They've got to rent a kayak, they've got to stay somewhere, they got to eat somewhere, all kinds of things. So they come in and they spend money. Tourism, well, sometimes it's a bad thing because it can be harmful to our wildlife. It's also a good thing because it benefits the economy. And then, like I said, estuaries are very biodiverse, so lots of people and huge companies will come fish. Often we find little shrimp in our estuaries, so shrimpers often will take advantage of the high biodiversity and the high species amount, so the large population of species, and fish them. And then they'll sell their fish and they'll make money, we'll get food, it'll be great, as long as they're fishing sustainably, but that's a conversation for another day. So to review, this is my exit ticket for you. I'll talk with you about it. You don't really have to write anything down. I just want you to know and understand what's going on here. So I would ask you to support this claim. Estuary and this might, hint, hint, show up on a test somewhere. Support this claim. Estuary ecosystems are important and effort should be taken to protect them. So I need you to use what you learned in the lecture and try and support this claim. Again, you don't actually have to do this. It's a thought experiment. We're going to talk it through. This is important in science because remember, if we don't support our claim with any evidence, it's like a table without legs. It's pretty useless. So we can say we can make a bold claim, a bold statement like what's here in the box, but if we don't support it with evidence, then it doesn't mean anything. So we're going to support this claim. So estuary ecosystems are important and efforts should be made to protect them. Here's my reasoning and maybe what you would want to know. So estuaries bring an economic value or money value in the fishing industry and tourist industry. So people want to come see the estuaries because they're beautiful, and people want to fish in the estuaries because they got a lot of fish. Economic value as a flood mitigation tool. So they might not make you money, but they help save money because if your property doesn't flood, then you don't have to pay for repairs. So they help you save money in that way. They help us save money because they stabilize the shore. If you didn't know, shoreline stabilization is a big thing. In Wilmington, it's called dredging. They dredge or pull up the sediments or the sand that's been eroded by the waves and put it back on the beach. And that costs a lot of money, like millions of dollars. So if the sand can stay, because we've got a lot of plants stabilizing that shoreline, and we don't have to pay for any of that, that is awesome. So it helps save money that way. Estuaries have ecosystem and scientific value in nurseries for organisms. So again, it's valuable because we know we can study them from a scientific standpoint, and from an ecosystem or environmental standpoint, more nurseries means more organisms, and generally a higher biodiversity means that the ecosystem is healthier. Number 5, estuaries have ecosystem or environmental value because they can store nutrients. So again, that marsh mud is chock full of nutrients. It's like taking, if you were a plant, it would be like taking a multivitamin. So it's got everything that that plant needs, which is great, again, for our nurseries and for the shoreline stabilization. And lastly, estuaries have ecosystem or environmental, scientific, and economic value because they are natural filters. Without them, we would have lots of toxins flowing into either the ocean or just the river system in general. And then if you can imagine, pollutants or toxins inside my ecosystem would not be very good for my organisms like my plants or fish, so things would die. So estuaries are an awesome thing. They are very important, and we should be taking efforts to protect them. Until next